Welcome back to CIA Declassified. In our previous episode, we detailed the depths of Project MK Ultra, the U.S. attempt to control the mind chemically. Today, we address the technological fear that propelled that research. Let's be clear about one critical declassified fact. Directed energy, psychotronics, and biofield manipulation are not theories the CIA dismissed. They were confirmed as genuine areas of weaponization by the agency in other declassified documents. If you're interested in the full scope of that specific confirmation, including the evidence of biological incapacitation via these directed energy methods, please refer to our dedicated episode on that subject already in the feed. Today we delve into the document that initially framed this invisible threat, Technical Note 50-25-83, authored in the early 1970s. The Cold War wasn't just about ICBMs and submarines. It was a battle for the human mind. The CIA was perpetually haunted by the fear of a technological surprise, a game-changing weapon that violated the known laws of physics. The reports filtering through the Iron Curtain regarding Soviet and Czechoslovakian advances in psychotronics painted exactly such a picture. These were claims that the enemy was learning to harness the mind's electromagnetic output, not just for telepathy, but for weaponized influence. The mandate for Technical Note 50-25-83 was born of necessity. Take the outlandish claims of psychic warfare, filter them through hard science and intelligence intercepts, and deliver a definitive verdict on the genuine threat level. It's a document that reveals the deep paranoia driving clandestine research on both sides of the curtain. By the late 1960s, intelligence reports indicated massive state-level funding for bioinformation research in the East, what the Soviets called Psychotronics, the West cautiously called remote human influence. Technical Note 50-25-83 was an internal product of the CIA's Directorate of Science and Technology, relying heavily on academic consultation and signals intelligence intercepts. Its approach was systematic: classify the alleged threat, then analyze the feasibility. The report divided the alleged Soviet program into three distinct escalating threat tiers. Biotelemetry, this was the baseline. It focused on the idea that every living creature emits a specific measurable electromagnetic signature, a biofield. The Soviet goal, as assessed by the note, was to develop remote sensors that could detect, track, and analyze an individual's physiology or emotional state from a distance, essentially using electromagnetic signals as a high-tech polygraph. 2. Remote human influence, the intermediate and most alarming psychological threat. This category covered the theoretical ability to inject information, commands, or disruptive emotional states like severe anxiety or fatigue directly into the subject's consciousness using low-frequency signals tuned to brainwave states. The signal itself could be below the sensory threshold, making the subject believe the influence was their own thought. And 3. Directed energy interaction, the weapon, the physical threat. This focused specifically on the use of focused, non-ionizing radiation, primarily pulsed microwaves, to cause measurable long-term biological damage or incapacitation, such as systemic fatigue, organ damage, or neurological trauma. CIA document reference, this is from the same Technical Note 50-25-83, RHI feasibility and signal tuning, quote, if a focused electromagnetic pulse is modulated at frequencies congruent with the theta or delta brainwave cycles, 4 to 8 Hz and 0.5 to 4 Hz respectively, it is theoretically possible to induce deep sleep or catatonic states. The successful targeting of these low-frequency cycles represents a potential strategic advantage in creating temporary localized behavioral control. Current intelligence suggests that Soviets are actively pursuing the technical means of modulating these ultra-low frequencies at high power. End quote. The note explicitly feared that RHI would be used to compromise security personnel, induce operational failures, or even trigger chronic mental illness in high-value targets. The theoretical framework laid out in Technical Note 50-25-83 gained terrifying legitimacy due to one confirmed sustained event, the Moscow signal. For decades, spanning from the early 1950s through the late 1970s, the U.S. Embassy in Moscow was deliberately and chronically irradiated by an intermittent low-power microwave beam originating from a nearby Soviet building. The CIA was well aware of the beam. They measured its characteristics and its effects. The signal was distinct. The frequency primarily in the VHF-UHF bands, often sweeping between 2.5 and 4.0 gigahertz. Power extremely low, well below the thermal heating limit, but significantly higher than natural background radiation. Modulation, often pulsed, suggesting the intent was not constant heating, but the delivery of a specific rhythmic energy burst. The note was designed to answer the single most urgent question: why? Hypothesis A, the intelligence cover story. The Soviets were simply cooking the building to activate or disrupt sophisticated U.S. eavesdropping equipment embedded in the embassy's walls, or perhaps to remotely power miniature electronic listening devices. Hypothesis B, the psychotronic weapon. The beam was a deliberate attack, a massive real-world experiment in directed energy interaction designed to degrade the cognitive and physical health of the diplomatic staff, forcing operational errors or early medical retirement. The official health assessment and redaction. This report was compelled to analyze the health data of the affected cohort, the diplomatic staff, and their families. CIA document reference, this is the technical note again, the epidemiological findings on embassy personnel, dated 1974. Quote, analysis shows a statistically significant correlation between duration of tenure at the Moscow facility and subsequent incidents of redacted, 5 lines of redaction actually, detailing specific blood and neurological disorders, I think, including a higher than average incident of chronic lymphoid leukemia and unexplained retinal damage. While a definitive causal link to microwave exposure remains scientifically unproven due to redacted, 2 lines citing limitations in U.S. medical tracking, the intelligence community's assessment is that the signal's intent was inimical to human health, end quote. Analysis of redactions. The intense redactions here protects the specific unique illnesses observed. For the CIA to redact the specific neurological and hematological disorders suggests these effects were either uniquely traceable to non-thermal microwave exposure or were deemed too politically sensitive to reveal to the public, as it would confirm the Soviets successfully inflicted biological damage on U.S. personnel operating in diplomatic cover. The final line, that the intent was inimical to human health, is the clearest possible admission in a public document that the agency believed the signal was a weapon. The conclusion of this technical note was not a satisfying scientific proof, but a strategic imperative. The report concluded that even if the psychic powers element of psychotronics was disinformation, the underlying directed energy capabilities were real and weaponized. This conclusion led directly to several key U.S. responses. 1. Defensive overhaul. The U.S. spent millions physically shielding the Moscow embassy, replacing windows with metal mesh and installing complex monitoring equipment. This acknowledged the threat was physical, not just psychological. 2. Internal counter-research. The document effectively argued that the U.S. could not afford to be caught behind. The analysis helped fuel subsequent highly classified American programs, many stemming from the ashes of MK-Ultra, designed to explore the very same concepts of RHI and biofield manipulation. If the enemy had it, the U.S. needed a counter-technology. And 3. The disinformation debate. The report's analysts wrestled with the possibility that the entire Psychotronics narrative was a KGB masterpiece. By leaking sensationalist claims about thought control and psychic warfare, the KGB diverted the CIA's attention and resources towards chasing an unproven fantasy, while their actual, less glamorous but more destructive weapon, the focused microwave beam, operated in plain sight. Technical Note 502583 stands as a document where the CIA admitted it couldn't tell the difference between a brilliant hoax and a terrifying reality. The legacy of this note is that it provided the intellectual justification for the continuation of extremely high-risk, ethically dubious programs within the intelligence community, all stemming from the fear of the invisible weapon detailed within its pages. This technical note remains a chilling reminder that in the Cold War, the most dangerous weapon was often the one you couldn't see, or worse, the one you couldn't prove. It forced the CIA to grapple with the possibility that the boundaries of physics were being pushed into a realm of pure warfare against the individual body and mind. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the psychotronic weapon. Next, we return to the darker corners of Project MKUltra itself, focusing on one of the most chilling and rarely discussed components, Subproject 130. This program moved away from mere drug trials and combined them with extreme sensory manipulation and a terrifying facility known as the Black Box. We will analyze the documents detailing the CIA's attempts to use controlled isolation and sensory deprivation to achieve total depattering, and why the results were deemed unacceptably destructive even by the agency's own lax ethical standards. Join us next time for CIA Declassified, MKUltra Subproject 130, the Black Box. Until then, understand the depth of the shadow government, maintain your vigilance, and keep your critical thinking sharp. I'll see you in the archives.